Hello there, and welcome back to the LJL officially unofficial. My name is Muddercott. I'm going to be joined by Recollect today as we are going through some LJL Academy tiebreakers. Recollect, we've got a couple of interesting matchups today. Why don't you take us through them?
Yes, obviously, first one of the day, we're going to be having the Rascal Jester versus Sengoku matchup, and this is an interesting one because we did see this one play out quite recently. They were playing each other, and Sengoku did, I believe, get the better of Rascal Jester the last time around. However, Rascal Jester picking up a very big win yesterday in sort of the very start of the day. So thanks to that one, they are through to the playoffs due to the format being those who are on the same amount of wins will have to replay. So good to see. And in the three-way tie
Yeah.
that did end up playing out, because of the nature of the three-way tie, we did have one of our teams go through due to time, and the other two now going to play later on in the day here in our second and I believe final game of
Final
the day.
game. Yeah, bit of a shorter day today. Not quite 6 BO1s in a row. But yeah, if you didn't catch that, Rascal Jesters versus Sengoku, because head-to-head doesn't matter for determining seeding. And then DFM versus Benninker Academy, because Hawks had the fastest average game time, so they go ahead in that matchup. And now we've got two teams that are playing for 4th and 5th, so basically playing for side selection, because obviously, no matter what happens, they are going to be seeded against each other when we get to the playoff rounds. But I want to talk a little bit more about Rascal Jesters and Sengoku specifically, because they have quite clearly been the weaker teams in the group. Obviously, Rascal Jesters not picking up a win until right at the 11th hour yesterday to actually put themselves into this tiebreaker matchup. And we're having a little bit of discussion off air about why that could potentially be. And I know that from my point of view, to win and do well in Academy, you need a couple players that you can really sort of rally around to be your star carries. And I feel like these two teams, these rosters, haven't really got those players yet.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the players that were sort of showing up, I mean, the names that come to mind for me, at least, for the side of Rascal Jester is going to be sort of Shakespeare
Yeah.
on those Leon engages that do look very strong. And when you flip the script, you look more towards sort of Akainu. I think who's looked very, very decent as well
Yeah.
from the Sengoku roster. The issue is that when you pair them against some of the other teams, in the nicest way, I feel as though I can list about 3 or 4 players in those roles that I would prefer to have if I was making an all-star roster. And that has issues when you don't necessarily have as much star power as some of the upper quote unquote rosters, if you will. Your V3s, for example, who have gone undefeated and looked very, very strong throughout the season for good reason, right? However, that does still mean that they do have some points of pressure, and I think that that's going to make for a really interesting dynamic going into the series, specifically because we saw how those strengths played out just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, obviously Sengoku able to pick up the win in that one, but I don't think that you can ever really count Rascal Jesters out in this matchup. While Sengoku do have the head-to-head, there are those players like Shakespeare and Rascal Jesters. I think Kurup on their day can be a very good jungler, although they are plagued by inconsistency, you have to feel. Those two show up today. I think there is a real chance that Rascal Jesters can actually claim the upper seed. Obviously, we're fighting for 7th place here, and that's going to be really important to dodge away from V3 in round 1.
Yeah, and I think the most interesting part about both these teams is that, to me, when I look at them and give them the eye test, it feels like they don't actually have a massive team identity just yet established. Like, for example, we see Suratama wanting to play these backline-based AD carries. We see a lot of Varus come through. Specifically, the attack speed came through. 2 days ago, I believe. We saw
Yeah.
the lethality yesterday, and it feels like they haven't quite decided on a style that they like. However, yesterday they did manage to pick up that sort of playstyle when they were win when they were able to play a more scaling-based top lane and played themselves the K or played the Camille mid, I believe. So these special sort of picks were able to pick up that win over Axis, as we mentioned before. And I'm interested to see what type of style they decide to go with in this time around, because I think that is going to be a very deciding factor in this one. As I mentioned before, playing through Akainu is going to be a very solid option for Sengoku, but they do like to play through Kurup as well.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how it pans out. I think different strategies and trying to find that team identity is very important. As we are going to be heading into the pick and ban phase right now. One thing that Rascal Jesters have been characterized throughout the season are unconventional drafts. The Camille mid worked out for them yesterday. We'll have to see if Sengoku will prioritize taking that one away. Instead, it's going to be the Nidalee and then LeBlanc taken off the board by RJ.
Yeah, Rando has played a lot of the Renekton, so the Nidalee ban makes a lot of sense to deny that one to an extent, and then the Alawi as well. The interesting thing is that throughout this tournament, I think there's been a rise in Viego priority in terms of the fact that this champion has looked pretty good, arguably in every single game it's appeared. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something like the Viego, Xin Zhao, or the Diana as the first three come through. And to be honest with you, I think Viego first pick here is actually not a bad shout here for Sengoku. However, I do expect them to go with the Xin Zhao instead.
Yeah, whilst the Viego can pop off massively in the team fights, I feel like the Xin Zhao is a little bit more... It allows you a bit more space to play, and as well as a lot of early game power. Renekton does a similar thing when you get into the team fights. Can just be this big meatball diving into the backline with the Gore Drinker, with the Sterax, and with the Dominus can sustain for a lot longer than perhaps he should.
I think the idea here is that you're expecting for the enemy to pick one of the junglers and you just take the other one anyway, because obviously you can't. If you were to take your jungler on B1, you're going to be giving away that Renekton pick potentially to the side of Rando, and this does create a situation now where the RG top lane are forced to reach a little bit deeper into that bag of picks, into that champion pool. However, I feel as though you still have quite a few options available to you. You've got things like the Wukong, which we've seen can be pretty strong, things like the Malphite as well, but right now, instead, we just see that mid lane come through for Cosmic, most likely, although that raised price can be flexed, and the Rakan come through for Shakespeare.
Yeah, and I quite like the Rakan as a pick here. We've seen it rising in priority a lot recently. I've actually spoken to a couple of GM Challenger support players. I actually think it's the strongest support in the meta right now. The matchup into Leona is one that has traditionally been really bad for Rakan, but he actually can play it a bit more freely now. With the Ziggs locked in for Sengoku, obviously this can still be flexed between that mid and bot lane. And if they choose to lock in the Leona here, whilst it's still a good matchup, doesn't favor it wouldn't favor Chilio as much as it would have done in the past.
I'm interested to see how RJ will elect to play out this bot side, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Is the fact that you can just go the scaling side. If you're going to be playing into the Ziggs, you lock in that Sivir, you just farm it up. And think about the Sivir Rakan engage potential there, because with that on the hunt, you can absolutely just make your Rakan start shifting his weight towards the enemy for that engage with the quickness engage. And a little bit of movement speed isn't going to hurt anybody, especially when you are playing the engage side.
Yeah, and it also sort of compensates for the low range that Rascal Jesters have got. Rise, Sivir can't hit people from a million miles away like something like the Ziggs can, but when you speed them up, especially comboing that with the quickness from the Rakan, you can actually get these engages off very quickly and close the distance. Popping into the second ban phase, Rascal Jesters targeting out these mid lane picks like the Yone, where Sengoku recognized that Rascal Jesters are yet to pick up their jungler and take that Lee Sin off the board.
I think it's really crucial that they do that, because logically speaking, Rascal Jesters actually have a lot of options available to them right now. They've still got the potential of setting up a 1-3-1, because they have a very safe core with the Sivir Rakan. If anyone tries to make an engage mid, you just pop that spell shield, keep yourself safe, and then after that, you just pop on the hunt and get away. On top of that, you have a very strong side laner in that Rise pick already coming through. And if you combine that with a proactive early game jungler, like the Xin Zhao we mentioned earlier, like this Lee Sin, which was banned away, there's a high likelihood that you could have yourself two winning side lanes and have more than enough power to get them into a winning state very early on.
Yeah, we saw the Elise from Krupp yesterday. Sengoku don't want to see it today. Was able to get a lot of stuff done early on, and that means that the Xin Zhao is still available, so Rascal Jesters could pivot towards that pick.
Yeah, I'm shocked that it's been allowed this far through the pick ban phase, to be honest with you, because it was such a high priority, especially at the very start of the tournament. So to see that one fully full is incredible to me. And the Volibear coming through here, it makes some sense, because it is obviously a flex pick between that top and jungle position, popularized specifically by Mutton, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not too surprised to see that to an extent, but it doesn't give you as much scaling into that Renekton matchup if you do take it top lane.
Yeah, although it could be paired up in the jungle like we already mentioned. We'll have to see. Rascal Jesters leaving until the last pick for everything to be resolved. Will be the Jarvan locked in for Sengoku. I know people have a lot of opinions about Jarvan, but you can't deny that his early gank pressure is insane.
Yeah, and in before this becomes Renekton mid and we just see Jarvan top. That would be something. But as we've mentioned, it's unlikely that will happen. But yeah, the Jarvan early ganking potential is very strong, and specifically against these types of carries like Sivir and Ryze, they don't have those dashes to get out of the Cataclysm, so they do get punished quite hard if you can get on top of them. The key part is trying to get on top of them, which can be quite difficult to close that gap, but at the same time, we do have things like Leona and Ziggs, which can combo very well off of that Cataclysm.
Yeah, and then the Galio locked in as well, probably going towards Akainu in the mid lane. Just dropping the Hero's Entrance on top of a Cataclysm as well provides you so much CC and damage. Will be the Aatrox locked in actually for Rando, so opting for a more lane dominant pick to go into the Renekton and try and out-skirmish him.
Yeah, this does show that teamfight identity differences between the two, as we mentioned before. Sengoku showing a lot more priority towards that team fighting aspects, playing around those key engage tools of the Solar Flare and Cataclysm, and then comboing, utilizing that Galio and Ziggs damage from range. But on the side of Rascal Jester, they have that Ryze split push as the game gets a little bit later. The Aatrox will do pretty well into the Renekton matchup if he can get through the first 3 levels or so. Again, level 6 could be a little bit shaky, but as the game goes on, I feel like the Aatrox can do quite well and be okay. So we'll have to see if Rascal Jester can get out of that early game with a solid state. And as I mentioned before, they have a very safe core within that 3, or potential 4 if they elect for a 1-4.
Yeah, and there isn't really anything that can answer the Ryze on the side lane. We're looking at some fairly low damage in terms of 1v1 potential on the side of Sengoku, much more drafted towards big team fights. And I feel like that could become a real issue for them because these lower table teams don't necessarily have the cleanest macros, so games tend to go a little bit longer than perhaps they should. And if this Ryze ever hits 3-4 items, all of a sudden you've got a massive problem that you can't really deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the game does go later and later, the Ryze becomes more and more of a problem, and we've seen people pilot that Ryze to great effect throughout this tournament. I mean, Lalicia, who has played it, I think Akainu himself has played that Ryze as well. So we've seen a couple of people make this Ryze, look very, very strong. However, at the same time, whilst the macro isn't optimal, which means that it does go later, that is an important point for the split pushing team as well.
Yeah.
Because the macro has to be good if you're going to be winning through this. You have to be applying pressure in the right places whilst, absorbing the pressure in others. And specifically, you need your core to wave clear well without getting engaged on, and that could be a very difficult thing to do, especially if you haven't had as much coordination and that effective sort of team play that has been plaguing some of these lower ranked teams, and specifically Rascal Jester has been one of those teams that has struggled to find the right engages but also not get engaged on caught out themselves.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can see some growth from them in that aspect of the series. I want to jump to talk about the Sengoku comp in a little bit more detail just before we get into game. I feel like we've got a lot of very high base damages here, and I feel like this is a team that can snowball quite hard, but when it does come to the late game, I'm not really seeing a reliable damage threat that could match up against the Sivir and the Ryze.
Yeah, I mean, if the fights go later and later to the point where people can survive the initial burst, it's going to be very difficult for the size of Sengoku. The obvious idea being the fact that they just want to isolate a specific target or set of targets and just blow them up with all of the Ziggs burst, combining that with the Galio crowd control over the top after initial engage comes through. The problem, as you mentioned before, is the fact that they are very reliant on base damage. Renekton scaling, it's not great. It's not, unplayable, but it's definitely not, tail. You'd still, there are things you would rather have. And obviously the same thing for Gallia, right? Relies very heavily on the base damage. Even if he does elect to go into the Proto Belt line and go AP from there, he's still gonna, not have as much scaling as something like a Ryze, as we mentioned before.
Yeah.
The big selling point for this composition is just having that very easy to pull, trigger, and just have that go button and being able to use that Mega Inferno Bomb over the top to be your burst damage. That's where the damage is going to come from. However, they don't have a physical damage scaler, so there is definitely an argument to be made that you can
lethality Jarvan?
Not in my solo queue. I can tell you this though, if a team elects to go something like Steel Caps on their front line and then just go into a magic resistance-based build, there will be solid value this game against the Renekton, who is very auto-attack based within his kit outside of that. The Q, a lot of the damage is just auto-attacks, and the same can be true for the Jarvan as well. So there is an argument to be made. You just go into those, steel caps. You then itemize full MR as a tank, and you basically never die. So we will have to see, how well that works. But if we don't see a big lead here for Sengoku before, 15, 20 minutes, Rascal Jester in a really good spot.
Well, we shall have to see as we are on to the rift for this 7th place tiebreaker. Winner will be facing off against CGA Academy. Loser has the unenviable task of attempting to take down V3 Academy. Sengoku, with their early game composition, looking to get stuff done. Rascal Jester's a lot more happy to let this game go long, pick up a couple Drakes maybe, and just scale into that late game where the Rise and the Civic can be so destructive.
Yeah, and I mean, Sengoku, having said that though, that's a lethality Silver for Shiratama.
Ooh,
that is not that's not the attack speed variation I was expecting.
Okay.
I actually think that's kind of bad. But because of the fact that if you do go the lethality variation of the Siva, suddenly you have decent issues getting through this Jarvan and this Renekton, assuming they are both going tank variations. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me for you to go that route, just because you already have more than enough, damage in terms of the fact that to carry you through the early game. I think it's a little bit of a mistake here from Shiratama, and we'll have to see whether or not that gets punished or if it does end up working out.
Well, because the reason that you go lethality Sivir is when you see a fair number of squishy champions on the enemy team where that lethality and that pretty insane damage that you can get from your Boomerang Blade is actually significant. Against a Renekton, a Jarvan, a Galio, Leona, they could just tank up like probably 10 of those Qs before having to go back to base. And they're not really going to allow you the time to get through their health bars, which is what the crit build is oh so good at doing. Sorry if I'm rambling a little bit. Big fan of Sivir, okay? Love the champion.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're going to see a little engage here in the bot side, but I think it's worth noting that, at least from my perspective, the Sengoku bot lane is the one that, after sort of level 3, when Ziggs is able to get a little bit of his abilities online, and once he's able to get some mana, it's Rascal Jester that's the one that will struggle, but trading here.
Ooh, going very aggressively onto Shakespeare, who has been ignited. The flash forwards with the short fuse! But it won't be enough to take down the Rakan. And now you're looking at a flashless Ziggs in the bot lane. Corrupt may want to path down and take advantage.
Yeah, very, very close from the Rascal Jester's bot lane going down, but luckily for Shakespeare, those pots keeping him alive. Very, very good stuff there from the bot side of Rascal Jester, and I can respect the attempt there from Nina. I would have done the exact same thing, so I can't blame in that situation. But this does create a little bit of a nice timer though for Sengoku, even though there is no flash available onto the Ziggs. You can now push this wave in, take yourself the reset, and with those 3 waves, you should be able to pick up that tier realistically, or at least get yourself something like the Sapphire Crystal to get yourself a bit of mana and help deal with Ziggs' early mana issues. And once you do have that online, you can teleport back to the lane, and suddenly the Ziggs is in a very good spot. And this is the issue with the lethality Sivir, because once Ziggs has himself this tier, he's just going to happily farm it out, not have to do anything or interact with you, and it becomes very difficult now because you have to snowball, but you can't snowball that effectively. However, that flash timer could be something to abuse.
He knows that Kurup is in the area. It's looking hungry for Cosmic here. Not sure if you win out a 2v2 if you're Sengoku, but a 3v2 sounds a lot better. Cosmic forced to flash away and will be able to escape on this Rise. But again, it's another summoner spell, but this time from Rascal Jester.
Yeah, great flash there from Cosmic. Absolutely would have gone down to that chain CC, but I love the proactiveness there from Sengoku. Aki knows that there's going to be the enemy Volibear there, so they just make sure they have the numbers to make this play work out, thanks to the roam there from Chili Oil. And unfortunately, Shakespeare, not in the area to do the same, but I feel as though the Sengoku 3 is significantly stronger anyway in these early games, so it makes a lot of sense for them to be looking at for those kinds of plays, and I want to see them do the same thing in the next couple of minutes to punish that flashless Rise.
Yeah, Chili Oil, not quite sure what you're doing here. Just let's go back. Okay, we'll take that, and we'll take the controlled. All right, it's fine. But something that I don't think has really been touched on as Shakespeare is positioning very aggressively against Nina, but with Aki in the area, could get caught out on the Rakan, able to dodge away with the grand exit and keep themselves alive for the second time in this game. And I think something that we need to be aware of least in this early game, well, especially in this early game, is because of the wave clear that the Civet and the Ziggs have against each other, there's a lot of potential for these supports to start roaming around the map and getting stuff done. We saw Chili Oil with a little bit of a trip into the mid lane, which resulted in Cosmic's flash. And if we see the Leona moving around the map a couple more times, might be seeing some kills breaking out very early in this game.
Yeah, on the subject of kills, the junglers are about to meet, but Rando, it does have that wave pushed in, so might be able to help out Curip, but Curip just going to use that blast and get himself to safety. That is a camp now tonight, obviously, away from the Jarvan, but as you mentioned, there was just something I wanted to go back on, and I love the play there from Sengoku. The fact that, Chili Oil was going for that pink ward, but to make sure that there was no engage option for Nina, the jungler comes to cover and keep their bot laner alive, and it's important to see this kind of thing. To me, it's the little things that make teams, stand out as being better, and this is the kind of thing Sengoku weren't thinking about, the counter plays that could come to them, and it was the thing that was getting them punished. So I love the fact that adaptation has already come through this early on into the game, and it's just a nice sign of life here for this team.
Yeah. As we look into the mid lane itemization just briefly, it does look like it is going to be that rocket belt build for Akainu. So a little bit more damage than necessarily you would expect from a Galio, and roaming towards this bot side of the map could look for a dive, or just to pick up this Mountain Drake.
And it's nice to get this Mountain Dragon a little bit earlier. We mentioned the fact that Sengoku are the one that are on the clock, so they've got to get this one spawning as soon as possible, and it'll be crucial to them whether or not it is that Cloud Soul that spawns, because if it is the Cloud Soul, suddenly they're in a very difficult state. I mean, they are very ultimate reliant, so that is, obviously the dragons themselves will be useful. But the soul itself isn't really worth contesting, I don't think, for the Rascal Jester side, so they can just allow themselves to essentially just ignore it, give it away, Elder spawns, and then from there, they've added 5 minutes to their clock, they're able to split push later on, but also, they're still going to be in a fairly solid spot, because giving up that soul, realistically, it's not as important as, say, the Inferno or the Ocean.
But recollect, I've got good news for you. It's not going to be a Cloud Soul, as that is the Drake spawning next. So it will be either Infernal or Ocean, a couple of the traditional OPs.
I do love me some fighting drakes, I will not lie. And on the subject of fighting, you and Rando taking a nice little trade there in the top side.
Yeah, I don't think either of these top laners has really built themselves an advantage, which probably fairly standard for this lane. I know that Renekton is a little bit of an early game bully, but definitely not as much as he was in years past. It's a bit more about getting to these big skirmishes, these 3v3s around Drakes, around Heralds, and really zoning people away effectively. Chili Oil missed that ward there, but will find this control, so obviously just pathing effectively to get a little bit more gold.
Yeah, it's... I was just going to say, did he avoid that? That would have been beautiful, but no. He does get spotted out. It's a shame that they've taken so long, though, because the flash for Cosmic is about to come up, so they're trying to punish it.
Oh, they're timing it perfectly. Not perfectly enough, though. As the Xenoblade comes out, there goes the hero's entrance, but it's not going to be needed. Aki picks up first blood.
Yeah, and it might result in a collapse hit towards the top side, so Sengoku now going to have themselves a leashed Herald off of the back of that play, and I was going to mention the difference between a good team and a great team is punishing those flash cooldowns after you do blow them, and Sengoku, I like the idea for the initial play. They do try to punish Cosmic's flash. Unfortunately, Cosmic does get his flash up, but the kill comes through anyway, so I like the idea, and this is the thing, even though the execution, isn't perfect, so they have to blow their own flashes to do it, specifically Chili Oils. I like the fact they are going for these kinds of plays. It shows that development and that improvement throughout this split, and it's just nice to see the Cataclysm blown, the Flash Sense Blade comes through, and the heroic entrance is a little bit overkill, but it doesn't matter. You get yourself that kill, and it now means you can punish again in the next couple of minutes.
Ooh, Aftershock prot there as Kurop is invading aggressively against Aki, who actually gets both buffs, and is top laner here to help him. Ultimately, you won't be needed as Shakespeare is engaged in the bot lane. The grand entrance is cancelled. The Mega Inferno Bomb throws out, doesn't do the damage that maybe you needed. As a Solar Flare comes out, Spell Shield doesn't actually proc as Chili Oil is diving under the tower. That's a flash from Nina for nothing, okay? But Shakespeare has to back away. Otherwise she'll be going down. A little bit of an interesting fight in the bot lane.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely something that I've just experienced. I wish I hadn't, but I've experienced it. Yeah, it's just a case of a little bit of a lack of bot lane coordination, shall we say, from the side of Sengoku. The re-engage comes through from Chili Oil. But the Q isn't there for the stun, so Nina just flashes forwards and can't actually pick up the kill onto Shakespeare, unfortunately. I respect the attempt, because obviously Shakespeare did not have the quickness available to try and counter that play, but it now means that you're flashless on both of your bot laners for the side of Sengoku, and I fully expect Rascal Jester, you've got to go towards the bot lane now. You've got to use that teleport on Rando. You've got to use the Realm Warp from Cosmic and try and make something happen onto those flashless carries.
Yeah, Shakespeare may be caught out here as Aki is just asserting themselves against the Rascal Jester's support. We have just crested the 10-minute mark, recollect. Sengoku have currently got themselves a 200 gold lead. Is this a position that they are going to be happy with?
No. Absolutely not, and that's why they're most likely looking to use this Herald now to just get themselves a little bit more of that gold, as we mentioned. And I love the fact they send 4 here. Akainu is here just to cover in case there is that teleport attempt here from Rando to try and flip the play around, as well as the fact they don't know where Kirip is. But as the side of Sengoku, you've got yourself essentially a 200 gold lead, which is essentially just like, it's about 2 waves, realistically speaking. It's not a massive advantage, but the Realm Warp might be changing that.
Yeah, Cosmic making their way to the top side. Yu flashes away, but still gets locked in the room prison and will get taken down by Rando.
Yeah, nice stuff there from Rando, and this is what I was talking about when I mentioned you need to make sure you're using those globals, but engage bot side too.
Oh, no flash on Chilio. Quickness already used. This is actually Aki that's getting dived onto, is forced to flash back, but Siratama can do as much damage as they want. Chilio now running towards Aiku. There comes the Stormbringer. The taunt doesn't connect, but the Boomerang Blade does, and Siratama picks up their first kill.
Yep, nice there for the side of Rascal Jester. And I mentioned before that SG, Sengoku are the ones that need to be in the lead. They're the ones that need to push the tempo, have the advantage. I believed. I was a believer. I was a believer there for a second, but it doesn't come through, unfortunately, there for Nina. But honestly, denying that dragon is going to be massive, on top of the gold now being in the Rascal Jester's favor. And let's just take a look at this play towards the bot side. As you mentioned before, it's just a case of the engage happening here on the bot side quickness, but Aki is the real target who ends up getting locked up here for a couple seconds. And at this point, Chili Oil is just kind of a donation. There isn't a whole lot that you can do. Yeah, meaning that your own jungler can get out alive, but realistically speaking, someone had to go down there, and unfortunately it was the oil.
Yeah, it was... I was going to try and think of an oil-related pun. Nothing came to mind, unfortunately. Yep, they got fried. Like... Chilio got fried there as Cosmic is forced to burn their flash away in the mid lane. I tell you what, Sengoku are really good at punishing that flash just after it comes back off cooldown.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? Perhaps if they were to do that play a couple of seconds earlier, they might have picked up a few more wins throughout the split. But at the moment, I like the idea, right? It's still something that they hadn't been doing at all, right? They've just been letting those flash cooldowns just be up immediately after blowing with no attempted play. And that's actually something that I want to talk about for Rascal Jester's side, because Sengoku's bot lane had both of their flashes blown in the bot side play. Yes, Rando, had a little bit of help there from Cosmic and made something happen onto you, but there was no punishment for the Ziggs. No punishment for the Leona, and realistically, the Ziggs is going to be that primary carry, and Leona most likely the primary engage. So I'm surprised to see that there was no play attempted here on the bot side, despite those cooldowns being blown.
Up here, taking away this Rift Scuttler. Zaki is on the top side of the map, and mainly to help out you, who has fallen to a fairly significant CS deficit here. Obviously, that roam up from Cosmic a few minutes ago grabbed Rando the kill, but there's just straight up a 30 CS lead for the Rascal Jester's top laner. And that doesn't feel good if you're a Renekton that doesn't really scale as well as you should. Akainu is jumped on. There goes the Stormbringer, and Kurup picks up a kill.
Yeah, thunderous dunk there from Kurup to pick up a freebie onto Akainu, and it's just a case of stepping up a little bit too far when you don't have vision on your side to keep yourself safe. And Yu is getting smacked about here by Rando. I love the trade, because now it means that Kurup can try to invade against this blue, because the enemy top laner has basically no HP, but it doesn't matter if Yu comes and Rando doesn't.
Ooh, Aki gets another steal away on his own blue buff. Second time he's had to do that this game. He's actually standing up fairly well on this Jarvan. Obviously, has made so many plays into the mid lane, but ultimately hasn't paid off enough for Sengoku, as they do find themselves in a 1.4k disadvantage, and Nina could be getting chased down. He does have flash, will be forced to use it against Shakespeare. The Boomerang Blade doesn't quite land to the Ziggs, and that means it's just going to be a trade of summoners in the bot lane. Meanwhile, on the top side, Herald has been started up, and it looks like Sengoku will finish it.
It's fine, we just mentioned the fact that Shiratama got the Dark Harvest. That's all that matters. Nothing else matters on that play. But more importantly, as you mentioned before, Sengoku are going to secure themselves this Herald towards the top side. And we talk about proactivity, we talk about how important it is for them to push the advantage. Well, they're not the ones with the advantage, and hopefully they can utilize that Herald in the mid lane to get themselves that turret off of the back of the fact that Cosmic is flashless again. You can use that Cataclysm into the heroic entrance combo. Maybe from there you could try and blow up this Rise, because that has been the play for Sengoku, but they've only pulled it off once so far.
Yeah, or you could opt to save that Herald for a little bit. Infernal Drake is spawning in a minute 15. The classic play, 40 seconds before the Drake spawns, you pop the Herald down mid. You can secure a bunch of vision and pressure in the river and make it really difficult for this Rascal Jester composition to run into you.
I know I shouldn't mention this, but that they missed the cannon, and it makes me very sad. But it's like PTSD, you know.
We don't need to call that out,
PTSD.
Recollect. It's fine, okay? Let it happen.
It just if my solo queue supports can do it to me, you know, I can do it to them. But anyway, more importantly than missing cannons, as you mentioned before, the Dragon spawning now in the next 35 seconds. And if we look at sort of the vision control, it feels as though Rascal Jesters is the one who has set up for success, because that Herald play hasn't happened. Aki hasn't been able to drop that in the mid lane just yet. With 20 seconds to go now, it feels as though we're not going to be seeing that, and instead everyone grouping up, but Rascal Jesters are the ones that can choose the fights they want to. But I think Sengoku's comp is a little bit more online at the current moment.
Important to note, though, no flash available to Shiratama. Cosmic does have it and will be forced to use it in about 15 seconds time. If past events are anything to go by, Herald has now been spawned in the mid lane, so Rascal Jesters, if they do opt to start up this Drake, they could be trading it for their tower.
Yeah, I feel as though it's not an ideal trade here for the side of Rascal Jesters, but they blow that one up quickly in Shakespeare.
It might just be going for the engage. Immediately onto you on the Renekton, who is diving forward. Kurup is doing the same on the other side. Here comes Afi, lands the Cataclysm. There goes Cosmic's Flash. There goes Jarvan. That's retribution for all those early ganks. The Mega Inferno Bomb doesn't do enough damage, as you will be falling as well. It's a second kill for Cosmic, and Rando is chasing forward. Shakespeare has died on the backside, and Chili Oil will not suffer the same fate. 2 for 1 in favor of Rascal Jesters, and they get the Drake.
Yeah, beautiful stuff there from the side of Rascal Jesters, and it's just a case of them picking the fights that they want to pick. They utilize Shakespeare's beautiful, charming personality there to catch out one on the Sengoku roster, and off the back of that, they're able to take the team fight the way they want to. And the key aspect to me here is just how split up the fight is for on the side of Sengoku, and that's incredible to me. It's a 2-man charm as well as that grand entrance knockup, but look at the way the fight breaks apart. I mean, 2 people dealing with Kurup, 4 of them move away now, and it's just a case of Aki just being the full focus of Rascal Jester, and because of that, they're able to buy so much time, and from here, the members are already in full retreat, and it's just a freebie pick onto the enemy top laner off the back of it. So, great stuff there from Rascal Jesters to just secure themselves that 2-for-1 team fight.
And I think this is really worrying if you're Sengoku, because these base damage team fights, when people haven't necessarily got the items that they would want to scale into that late game, you should be winning these. And the fact that you're not, the fact that you're falling further behind in this early game, that Drakes aren't really a win condition for you anymore, makes me pretty worried for them as we get later into this game and the Sivir and Rise just start stacking up those items.
Yeah, the Sivir Rise scaling is nothing to scoff at. Even if it is the lethality variation, the utility is always going to be there. And it's still going to be a massive pain for people like Nina, who is going to be getting chunked. People like Akainu, who, realistically speaking, is going to get the Zonyas. But outside of that, no real armor going to be coming through in that build if you are going the AP Galio. So it's not going to be ideal. And in that regard, I feel as though Rascal Jesters, we mentioned how strong their scaling is, specifically their 1-3-1. But they can team fight too, and it might be a case of them looking for it, because Kurup is nearby, but this 3v3, it could be a difficult one for them to take. However, just setting up that vision control to prepare themselves for the Baron spawning here in 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's not like Sengoku are on bad itemization at this point either. Nina does have that Leandri. Zaki is diving forward, gets the 2-person Cataclysm knocked up himself, and Shiratama flashes back to avoid the Mega Inferno Bomb, but he can't avoid the Crocodile. It's jumped right on his face. The heroic entrance comes out, lands the knockup onto Kurup, but there will be no more chase for Sengoku. It's a very nice pick, but what can they do with it?
Yes, Shiratama gets rocked by the Croc there as Yu comes in from the flank and makes it very, very difficult for the Sivir to stay alive. And This is kind of what we talked about that Sengoku can do so effectively. When they're able to pull the trigger, they can delete members of Rascal Jester because of how limited their escape tools are. They don't have any dashes available to them. So the Solar Flare is deadly. The Cataclysm is incredible, and it's exactly what we do see here as Akai just goes forwards onto Shiratama. They see the Civ is a little bit too far forward. Cataclysm comes through, and it doesn't matter if you Solar Flare because Yu is here for the flank of the Renekton, gets onto that key carry. There's no flash available. It was blown in the play ahead of time thanks to the initial engage, and off the back of that, Sengoku, they get themselves a free mid tower, and that's going to have massive implications here for giving themselves that macro advantage that they need to have.
Yeah, you could set up vision a lot more easily because there's not some big things stood in mid lane stopping you from going into the enemy jungle. Which means that when we get to this Infernal Drake spawning in a minute's time, which would be sole point for Rascal Jesters, it's a big advantage for Sengoku to have on their side. Brando, continuing the split push game on this Aatrox, has been building that CS lead even more. Has already got the Gore Drinker in pocket and is looking to build towards that Sterak's fairly soon.
Yeah, the only problem here for the side of Sengoku in terms of setting up that vision control is just establishing mid-priority because of the amount of wave clear that this Sivir brings to the table. It's very hard to give yourself the wave to push in and force people to catch that while you set up the vision, so yeah, it is a case of, at the moment, the lane state is actually kind of neutralized. I think it's slightly favorable to the Sivir if you're able to walk up. However, in order to combat that, you just bring a couple other members to cover the members of Sengoku, and from there you can start to establish the vision control, and it's important they do it now, because that dragon, as we mentioned before, spawning in 30 seconds, and Rando doesn't have the teleport, so he's going to be forced to run here, which means that if Sengoku can stall this one out, they'll be able to get themselves that top tower with you still having the teleport available. And Curip is cheeky. I love that little smite still.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you saw that, Recollect, but that's pretty spicy. It means that you can actually like get vision into the river, which is something Rascal Jesters lack. However, they do not lack for engage. As Aki dies with the Cataclysm, no flash on Shiratama. They are stuck in the Venn diagrams of death. The Solar Flare goes wide as Kurop is trying to take down Sengoku members on the backside. Will take down Nina, but ultimately pays for it with his life. Good flash from you to dodge away from Cosmic's damage. It's a 1-for-1, 1-for-2 actually. Bot laners going down on both sides and Kurop out of the picture as well. But Sengoku, low health bars on Akainu and on Chili Oil. They could still get pressured off.
Yeah, the biggest problem here, though, for the side of Sengoku is the fact that Rascal Jester's key carry Cosmic is basically full HP, picking up that blue, and it's very hard to find access onto this rise with the engage tools they have available. Keep your eyes on Cosmic for this one.
Oh, Infernal Change didn't quite pull back onto Aki. Shiratama coming through with the TP. The rise is here as well, obviously. So we could be seeing a brawl. TP comes out as well from Akainu. Nina actually is in the fight. Aki isn't, though. Forced to flag drag away as Chilio diving onto the backside. Akainu doing the same, but interrupted by the knock-up from the Darkin Blade. That means he won't be finding the taunt, and Sengoku will not be finding the fight. Cosmic TPing through onto the backside will not find Aki, as Rando is continuing to run forward. The Greatsword not quite smashing down onto Nina, who pops the Mega Inferno bomb, but will get popped himself. It's another kill for Rando, and Rascal Jesters look to pick up the Drake.
A big fight there from Rascal Jesters. The key aspects there are the teleport from Shiratama to be there to help back up the rest of the team to counter Nina's teleport later on down the line, and just Cosmic is completely untouched during this fight. It is so hard to touch this rise in the elongated play because you've used all of your key ultimates. There is nothing available, and Rando lands a beautiful little bit of burst onto Akai, and just keep an eye at the damage Cosmic is dealing at that point. Incredible stuff, and when the taunt comes through, crucially, the interrupt from Rando is huge. It keeps both of the carries alive, and at this point, Rando has done so much work. Cosmic with the initial bit of burst, but Rando carrying in terms of the crowd control and damage later on down the line, and now Nina has nowhere to go. He's forced to try and keep themselves alive, but Rando picks up the second of the fight, and crucially, this Aatrox has done absolutely everything to secure that teamfight win.
Yeah, has now got that Sterak's completed. If you are entering into a skirmish for your Sengoku, you have got to beware of the Darkin Blade. Going into a short pause now. I'm not too sure what this is all about, but hopefully it's resolved soon, and we're going to be able to get back into game. Where we're at right now, Rascal Jesters, they just got themselves a Drake, so they're currently sat on Soul Point, but that doesn't matter for a few minutes. Both teams posturing around the Baron, could see a fight here soon.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's going to be very beneficial. More so to the side of Rascal Jesters, because when you consider the teleport situation, in the top side, you had to blow the teleport during that last fight
Hmm.
to try and join. Whereas on the flip side, the Rascal Jesters have still got both of their teleports available, I believe, on both their key carries.
Yes.
So it means that they are going to be able to set up potentially that 1-3-1 we spoke about. And Sengoku is the one that will have to force themselves to do that Baron setup. But to try and set up into this composition is going to be difficult because that Silver Poke is going to come through and be very painful. But to be fair to the side of Sengoku, we've seen them, perform their composition correctly within these team
Yeah.
fights. We saw when the engages come through and Siritama has no flash, you don't have counterplay.
Yeah.
You're going to die, and there is nothing you can do because we don't have the Gale Force itemization. We
Yeah.
don't have anything like the Shield Bow to stall for time. There is no stopwatch on this carry, I don't believe. I'll have to double check that, but I believe there is no
Off the
stopwatch
top of my head,
available for
no.
Sivir. And if you don't have any of that, what do you do against Cataclysm Engage? If you don't have the flash, you've got nothing.
Yeah.
The rest of it is just going to come flying. Ziggs is going to start nuking you from 6 foot, meters away. There's nothing you can really do at that point. So that is kind of the issue. However, the other members of Rascal Jester are bringing the fights back. The Darkened Blade has been beautiful from Rando. As we saw in that last fight, it was key to dissuade that Galio crowd control onto Cosmic. And Cosmic is doing so much damage. It's completely underrated.
Yeah.
But if you keep an eye on this rise, the EQ damage from that Spell Flux is incredible onto the backline.
Yeah. It's kind of not normal, kind of not fair. And I think it's important that you touched on how accessible Shiratama actually is, because this is the big thing that we felt that Sengoku's composition had going for it coming into the game, was this ease of execution onto the key carries. Obviously, Cosmic not really being focused out as much as Shiratama. But then you have to ask the question of, well, how does this composition deal with a fed Aatrox? You don't really have the burst to get through him, and in a sustained fight, he's just going to keep healing up and smacking you down with that greatsword. There's not really much you can do.
Offensive Leona.
Hmm.
I guess. I mean, I guess the idea you can have is because you have so many tools to blow up those key carries, you just have Jarvan Cataclysm, Solar Flare over the top, and then from there, just don't go in as the Leona play. You just play to Q Aatrox on repeat.
Yeah.
And you just play bodyguard. There's an idea in certain compositions, specifically when you play against champions like Vladimir, who likes to flank with Alistar. The way you play that situation is you literally just play defense Alistar. And the idea is that if the enemy tries to flank you, you keep your headbutt or your pulverize to just keep them away. You
Yeah.
create a 1v1 that you're going to lose, but you make sure that they can't do anything to your backline either. So even if
Yeah.
you die, the Leona value, once she's blown Solar Flare, is significantly lower than the Aatrox who was ulting. There is definitely... And to be fair, Leona is kind of broken with her W, so she's not going to die quickly. She can stall for a long time. So in reality, I think the best thing you can do, if you are playing the defensive side here for Sengoku, is you just blow the Solar Flare aggressively, and then just try and peel. Just play pure peel,
Yeah.
Leona. Don't bother playing aggressive. Don't bother with the engage. Your team has more than enough. You've got the heroic entrance. You've got the Cataclysm. You've got the Mega Inferno Bomb. That's more than enough to blow up a carry. Just play to keep that backline safe and play for distance. And that's all you've got to do. But in reality, it's still a very tough task to keep this Aatrox at bay.
Yeah, because ultimately Shield of Daybreak and Zenith Blade aren't the longest stuns in the world, and whilst the cooldown does go down significantly as you start to level it up, it's a difficult task. You're not playing something like the Alistair that can bodyguard so well. Leona wants to go in, she wants to be playing proactively, and so when she is on the back foot, she's always going to suffer. But I think that's how you need to do it if you are Sengoku. You essentially ignore the Aatrox, just keep him out of sight, keep him out of mind, let him do his thing, beating up against Chili Oil off to the side. You delete Suratama or Cosmic, and then all of a sudden, your base damage reliant composition actually has a much better time, because the Volibear starting to get to the point where he's not as strong as he could be, and the Rakan is always going to be a fairly squishy character, even though he's very mobile.
Yeah, when we talked about the composition of Sengoku, there was one specific champion we looked at and we went, hey, this has a bit of scaling to it, and it's Nina on the Ziggs. And
Yeah.
that's the key aspect, right? Is Rando is finding that Ziggs access to be such a pain. So if you are going to have any chance of the later game fights, blow up one carry, and then keep Nina alive. Play around that Ziggs, because the amount of damage he can do in consistent, segments, if you can land those Qs, if you can set up that minefield, if you can use that satchel to keep yourself at a distance. The key aspect is after you get that initial pick, arm's length is the way to go if you are playing the side of Sengoku.
If you are just joining us, apologies. We should be in a game right now, but there is an ongoing pause in this first tiebreaker of the day between Sengoku and Rascal Jesters. I think before this game, we're fairly up on Sengoku as a team, but Rascal Jesters definitely showing that they're here to play. And I think an important thing is that they didn't go for any over-aggressive plays in the early game. They recognize that they do have this compositional strength as we get later on, and something that Academy teams can often fall foul to is trying to do too much when ultimately waiting is just a better strategy.
Yeah, I mean, there is the idea that doing nothing is in some way a way that means that you're losing because you're not just doing it, being proactive. But you don't have to be proactive to win the game. That is not an aspect that is true. It's completely false narrative. The fact is that if you win by a game going to 40 minutes, then doing nothing for 40 minutes means you are winning. You are the one who gains advantage from nothing. So that's kind of how it works. If a team wins the early game, they lose by not winning the early game. So just don't let them win it by being really defensive or just trading around the map. That's why we tend to see, when a team has a very positive, proactive early game comp, we see structure trades. We see, they play towards the bot side. Okay, we get top tower. We're trading global gold. And in the same way you try and trade global plates, because even if your team doesn't have the best early game, if you have a numbers advantage, you can usually still do something on one side of the map. So the fact that we have seen that kind of thing coming through from Rascal Jester in regards to the fact that they haven't really allowed themselves to bleed out gold. Even at the point where we saw Sengoku, make those plays mid, great, they got themselves Herald, amazing. We then tabbed and we were like, oh, it's a 200 gold lead. Yeah. So,
as we are back in the game and Sengoku are back on the hunt for Rascal Jester. Thank you for sticking with us. I think that's wasn't too long a pause. I don't know. Time sort of dilates me when we go into a pause. Just sat there looking at the stream going, please, I want some League of Legends to happen.
I mean, minutes turn to hours when I'm with you, Middlecop, don't worry. It's
Wait.
It's always a good time. It's kind of sus, but more importantly, Sengoku, they're looking for this play towards the top side, and Kira might be walking straight into Aki.
It doesn't have ultimate available. There goes the Mega Inferno Bomb, but can just run away. Used to be called the Rolling Thunder. Can't remember what it's called now, but Rolling Thunder was a really cool name, and it should have stayed like that, right?
Rolling Thunder sounds like an old COD kill streak. I don't know if that's right.
I'm pretty sure it is. Well, Rolling Thunder is like it was like the airstrikes in Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
That's where it comes from. I don't understand why a bear running towards you is Rolling Thunder, but apparently it used to be, and it isn't anymore.
Yeah, it's more like a roaring thunder to me. With the thunder bear just screaming at you to stop. Why are you running? But it's always fun. It's always fun. But what isn't fun there for Rascal Jester is they do just end up losing themselves that bot tower. No one there to pick up the proximity gold, so it's not the worst thing ever. But it does mean that now you're a little bit less safe in this side lane, and specifically the side lane is something we need to talk about, because when we look at this itemization, Cosmic is on those 2 items. The Rise is starting to come to fruition. Rando also sitting on 2 items. So the key sort of members in terms of splitting the map apart for Rascal Jester are starting to come alive in this one. And specifically, I love the fact that the Rascal Jester's bot lane, they're playing so far back because Siratama has got PTSD at this point. You don't want to step up. There could be anyone. You have very limited vision. So just don't let yourself get engaged on by Solar Flare or some sort of sprinting Jarvan who's going to shove a flag down your throat. You've got to be very careful there. But Rascal Jesters are here to potentially try and protect Rando here from the play from Sengoku. But as we mentioned before, nothing happening is positive for the side of Rascal Jester.
Sometimes you just want to wait, and then you get your late game win con online, and all of a sudden you win one team fight, and the game is over. We could have that team fight around this Infernal Jake, or at very least a precursor to it. Rascal Jester is currently sat on that soul point. If they're able to pick up an Infernal Soul with a Rise, with a Poke Sivir, Becomes very unfun to play the game if you're a member of Sengoku. Rando could be finding this a little bit unfun though. Doesn't have the flash available. World Enter is up. Aki making his way to the top side. World Ender has been popped. It's the double TP response from Rascal Jesters. They saw the play coming, and they are reacting beautifully. Siratama flashing away for the Cataclysm, but it's actually the first kill going over to Sengoku. Immediately traded back. The Soul Flare lands onto Cosmic, but there is no follow-up, because, hold on, there's a bear jumping on your back line. Kurup goes into that Zhonya's, but it won't save him from the damage from the bouncing bombs. Chili Oil will be the sacrificial lamb to save the rest of his team, but you will get turned into a handbag on the backside. 3 members alive for Rascal Jesters, only 2 on the Sengoku side.
I wasn't actually a massive fan of the initial play there for Rascal Jester because I felt like they were going to be the ones that were reacting second, but unfortunately they were also going to be at numbers disadvantage, but the teleports do come through from one side and not from the other. So the initial engage looks very good here from Sengoku. They find their way onto Rando, thanks to you using that slice and dice, and yes, they sacrifice the tower, but initially it looks very, very good, because you've got yourself your jungler here, you've got yourself both of your teleports available from your Ziggs and from your Galio. But if we look at the situation, Akainu is forced to fight down towards the bot side, so we can't arrive immediately, and it costs them because now suddenly the members of Rascal Jester are there a little bit faster, and Cosmic is able to do a decent amount of damage on this Rise. Everyone's already so chunked from just trying to get there, and then look at the EQ damage here. Now suddenly everyone is out of the fight, and there's nothing you can do, and at this point, Chili Oil is just trying to keep themselves alive, but fighting again.
Yeah, Chili Oil's not going to be alive for much longer as they're slammed into the ground by Co-op. Rando on a rampage as well, going forward. There goes the Volibear diving under the tower. Will pay for it with his life, and there's nothing else that Rascal Jesters can get on the backside. But importantly, the Drake is up, and there is no jungler for the Jesters. If Aki wants to get a steal, wants to make the hero play, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, Aki absolutely needs to get in there, get themselves that dragon to deny the soul. But Rascal Jesters is still starting up. Cosmic is doing that one. I think the idea is you're going to have Rando just try and zone out this job. But remember, the Ziggs has the ultimate available, but it isn't blown. The Infernal Soul is picked up here for Rascal Jester, which means that scaling, that damage is online for them.
Yeah, absolutely massive. Cosmic now on 3 items as the Zonya is completed. Siratama close behind him will be getting the Sharilda's Grudge very soon. And Sengoku, it's not a massive gold deficit that you're in, but in terms of power level, it just feels so rough for you right now.
Yeah, it's just a case of the champion usage of those items and scaling.
Oh,
you just can't catch a break, can you, if you're on the Sengoku side? Like, it's just one of those games, you know? Sometimes you just get your red buff stolen by a bear, and it's just sad. I guess bear beats crocodile. What do we know? I would like to see, I think I mentioned this earlier, but Siratama pick up that stopwatch, because
yeah,
you know you're the key target. You are the one they're going for. And every other member that could be blown up from your team has got a Zhonya's at this point. The Volibear has the Zhonya's. Cosmic has got himself the Zhonya's on that Rise. Realistically, you're the only one they're going to go on. They do not care about anyone else. So just pick that one up. Keep yourself safe. It's 650 gold, so you don't die.
Akainu might be dying here on the sideline. Very nice interact from the Darkin Blade as it crushes down onto the Galio. Pops the World Ender as well. The flash away won't be enough as the follow from Rando takes down Akainu.
Beautiful solo kill there from Rando. He ends up picking up a nice situation in the sideline, gets that solo kill as you mentioned, and it's just a case of running down the Galio. This is a level 17 Aatrox.
Quite scary, quite scary.
Yeah, I think that was a 3-level gap, if I remember correctly, and let me tell you, levels matter in League, and the damage is not something to scoff at. Ooh, a little bit of Realm Warp action here from Cosmic.
Cosmic diving forward into the round pit by himself. Siratama now altering it, so will be spotted out. Aki is in the area. Yu is also here. With the response coming out from Sengoku, Rascal Jester are just going to back away, but this means that Rando can pick up that bot lane in a tower, and Chili Oil is able to get away from the grand entrance and escape with their life.
Yeah, it's really, really good here for the side of Rascal Jester. They're able to pick up a free turret there. Essentially, they blew the Realm Warp for a bot in a tower, which I am pretty happy to take as a trade when you do have your teleport available as the Rise. It literally does not matter that much. It doesn't mean you can't do, obviously, the famous Rise Realm Warp shenanigans where you bring everyone into the Baron Pit and just blow it up completely, because obviously the damage that Rascal Jester actually has right now is insane. They have plenty of damage to just nuke the Baron if they want to. So you can't do that play, but it doesn't actually matter if you get yourself more and more objectives around the map, get yourself that standing gold that's still available. And it now means that with that tower falling, you can start to set up vision in the bottom side, and that means you can keep Rando safe in the side lane, because Rando, he's got himself a level now on you, has got 3.5 items on that Aatrox, so is massively inflated as to where you would expect him to reasonably be in this matchup, and can start to really take this matchup to you on the Renekton.
Yes, he can indeed. Rascal Jester looking to take it to Niner, though, able to jump himself away, but that's not going to stop Kurup as he dies with the Stormbringer, and Siratama picks up the kill. Now, a couple members of Rascal Jesters are on the wrong side. The bear goes golden, but will be turned into a rug by Kainu as he picks up the kill. Rascal Jesters, though, continuing to fight under this tower. Still yet to take that first one in mid lane, but ultimately just a 1-for-1 trade.
I mean, that felt personal.
Oh, it might not be done, though, as the quickness is used by Shakespeare on top of Akainu. Rando's taken down the Galio before, and will do so again as Cosmic flashes forward onto Aki. Flag drags himself away. Rascal Jester's playing with unparalleled aggression right now.
Yeah, as I said, it feels personal from Rascal Jesters. Shiratama ends up flashing under the tower to try and kill Nina. Cosmic flashing over a wall to try and kill Aki. And the flashing games from Shakespeare to try and pick up Akainu. And I mean, it works out to Akainu and onto Nina. They do get themselves 2 kills. But there's now no flash against a composition that is built to punish teams without flash. So whilst Rascal Jester do get themselves that initial play, they now are flashless for this Elder fight.
Yeah,
so to me, yeah, it's a minute and 20. It's very scary now for Rascal Jesters. They have themselves the gold advantage. But I feel like Sengoku, they might have given themselves an opportunity to maybe take that Elder fight.
I'll tell you what, though. One thing that is going in favor of Rascal Jester right now, well, amongst many, I think we can ask Shiratama the time, as they have picked up that stopwatch. So this shotgun, this burst that Sengoku wants to get down onto the Sivir, completely ignore that now. Can go golden, survive up, it's fine. And then the cooldowns don't really, they don't have the uptime on Sengoku to keep going forward. So if you could dodge away from a hero's entrance with that, or even a Cataclysm, you're feeling pretty good if you're Siratama.
Yeah, even if you do end up dying after the stopwatch cast, the amount of time you will buy for your team, pun thoroughly intended, it's more than enough to really guarantee you a decent team fighting situation. So, realistically speaking, we're going to see Cataclysm hit onto Siratama, but after that, the Zigzot will be dodged. Most likely, the Solar Flare damage will be dodged as well, and even if you don't have the flash, if you can cast the ultimate on the hunt just to keep your team alive, that's more than enough.
Recollect, Rando has picked up a Sherulda's Grudge. You don't even need to get hit by the sweet spots of the Darkened Blade for them to really start CCing you, hurting you a lot. Yu is sat in base, does have the teleport available, and both teams recognizing that this Elder fight is oh so important.
Yeah, Cosmic picking up in mid-prior, so there isn't priority here for the side of Sengoku, but they are the ones who are grouped up already. Engage here.
Yeah, directly onto Rando. Does have the Sterax, but it might not be enough as he's able to go back over the wall, and the AoE damage is just enough for Rascal Jesters to keep their top laner alive. They now have priority onto the Elder Drake, and they are dealing with it swiftly. There goes Aki into the backside, immediately forced to flash back as Yu dives forward as well. The fight is being split, and Kurup is winning on the backside. It's a 2-for-2 right now, but the Volibear is somehow still alive. Cosmic pops the Realm Warp, but will not follow through, as Sengoku are actually taking this fight. Still, 2 damage threats alive on Rascal Jesters, but blinking health bars on Cosmic doesn't want to walk up.
Yeah, but if a couple more of those bombs start landing from Nina, Siratama will be in quite a bit of trouble. I feel as though Sengoku, you've got to reset at this point, though, because Cosmic is going to come back with that teleport, and suddenly you're going to be a very difficult situation here from the side of Sengoku. So they find a good fight for themselves, but they can't do anything more off of that, unfortunately for them. It does mean that they're blowing some key cooldowns such as their ultimates, but realistically speaking, those cooldowns aren't actually that long, and we're going to see ourselves that team fighting. To me, just look at the Gore Drinker heal from Rando. The shield from this, and then bam. Yeah, that's the reason the Aatrox survives. It's nothing else. He just heals his entire health bar with the Gore Drinker on its own, and the Sterak's shield helps out. And look at this backline situation, because the Renekton is buying so much time here from you. He picks up one, picks up two alone. That's why the side of Sengoku are able to win this fight so well. It's all on you, just deleting people in the backline. With this champion, we said, isn't going to scale that well. But, I mean, thanks to the Ziggs damage, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely doesn't at all. And Sengoku, they finally were able to split the fight and fight in a way where it wasn't just Siratama and Cosmic Free hitting onto them. You let you tank that up, stay in the front line, you deal with everyone diving on top of you, and then you can play it out. Importantly as well, Rando used the World Ender in the initial engage, so that wasn't available. That bonus healing, that bonus damage wasn't available. But now both teams returning to the scene of the crime. This Elder hasn't been started up, but Siratama uses the On the Hunt. Rando goes into the backside and just crushes through Sengoku. Akainu, though, trying to buy time on the backside as Cosmic is still alive, but Siratama flashes forward and is getting culled. He's the Meek right now before you. So much damage onto the Sivir, but the second dice doesn't hit, and Siratama stays alive. Rando will pick up the kill, and it was closer than it should have been, but Rascal Jester take the fight.
Yeah, Quadra kill comes through there for Rando. End up picking up that one off of the back of this Aatrox, and Rando has been doing massive amounts of work. Siratama does end up surviving off the back of the fight as well, and Rando will be happily able to tank up the Elder and solo that one. I have to feel like Rascal Jesters, they can't end the game off this one, but if they're smart, Rando will just hold the damage when he gets a little bit lower to guarantee that Elder Drake onto every single member, because realistically speaking, if they see a Kainu, they can just burst it later on down the line. I'd like to see Rando just hold it to make sure that Cosmic gets it, but I actually don't think the Aatrox damage is high enough anyway to blow it up before Cosmic, so I guess it's not a problem.
5, 4,
yeah, 4,
3, 2,
2.
Oh, he did wait.
1.
Oh, that was very kind. Very, very kind of Rando.
Yeah, Merry Elder there for Cosmic able to pick that one up. And as you say, just look at Europe. I mean, the On the Hunt just gets popped, and Volibear, it is time to go to the races. We are sprinting. It's time for Derby time, and teleport here going to come through. Nothing too special, but the flank here from Rando is beautiful, as you mentioned, and look at the damage this Aatrox can deal. It just doesn't die, deletes everyone, and even though Akainu is buying time on the backline to dealing with Siratama and dealing with Cosmic, it doesn't really matter if you don't have any sort of backline yourself.
Look at the dice.
Oh, it's so close. It really is. You just... I don't think it would have made a difference in the end. Maybe you would have kept your turrets up. But the Elder at that point was already secured thanks to Rando and the damage from the Aatrox. 8,000 damage.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of top lane being top lane, I suppose, because both the top lane is dealing incredible amounts of damage. But, you know, with this Elder on the table now, this 1-3-1 we mentioned before is permanently online for the next few minutes for the side of Rascal Jester.
Yeah. And instead of opting directly into that, Rando has opted to find himself in the enemy base. Does have the World Ender available, as well as the Flash. Gets locked up with the Solar Flare, but it's starting to turn it around. Here comes Shakespeare to save the top laner, and you need some milk! As Cosmic teleports into the backside and will just fall down. The Darkin Blades continue to connect, but the shielding from you is just not enough. Rando picks up another kill. Kurb dies into Aki, who will survive with the Sterak's. Nina won't be so lucky as he goes golden and falls down. Rando continues to land the Darkin Blades. The Infernal Chains pull back Akainu, and Rascal Jesters are just playing with their food at this point. It was a 40-minute game, but off the back of an immaculate performance from Rando, Rascal Jester will be able to take down Sengoku and lock themselves into 7th place.
12, 2, and 5 on the Aatrox there for Rando, absolutely destroying everyone. And I thought a little bit at the end was being a bit over-aggressive, you know, going in 1 versus 3 for an inhib. I mean, there's no way you can survive that. That wouldn't be very fair. Oh, he's just killed everyone. Oh. I see. And even though Cosmic, you know, provides a little bit of a donation incentive with that Realm Warp at the end, shall we say, doesn't seem to matter when your Aatrox just kills absolutely everyone, because Elder is murdering people. The Dark and Blade damage is there, and the Gore Drinker plus the healing that is coming through. he's just unkillable. There's nothing you can do at that point in the game. And we mentioned the importance of scaling versus early game. And Rascal Jester, they did very well in that early game stage, and they scaled it out to perfection.
Yeah, brilliant performance from Rando on a pick that we didn't actually talk about too much because I think the Aatrox is there. He's going to be dealing with the front line. He's acting as this sort of wall, but it's going to be Cosmic. It's going to be Siratama dealing the damage. And whilst the Sivir definitely was outputting that DPS, I feel like Rando had possibly the best performance I've seen from him this entire split. And it's in a very important game because this now means that Rascal Jester will dodge away from V3 in the first round robin and will be facing up against CGA. But Sengoku will have to run the gauntlet in many ways as they'll be going up against our Phoenix representatives.
Yeah, I mean, pick your poison. They're both very good teams,
Yeah.
but definitely nice to avoid V3. I will not lie. That is the team that we've been watching out for, and to me has always felt like, at least throughout this tournament, has felt like they are just on another level. So to avoid them, it's massive to give you a little bit more time to prepare. And credit where credit's due, right? To the side of Sengoku, they have shown signs of life in this game that they hadn't shown throughout pretty much the entire tournament. The way that they would blow a flash and try to punish it mid lane was something we haven't seen them do the entire game, the entire split so far, at least in this tournament. So I like the fact they were trying to do it. Unfortunately, their maths was just a little bit off pretty much every time. Where Cosmic is like, we're going to make a play on you, and my flash is coming during this play.
Was Cosmic running Cosmic Insight? Because that does lower your flash cooldown.
I hope not.
I
feel
hope
like
not.
I feel like if you're running Inspiration secondary on Rise, then something has gone horribly wrong.
A little bit of an issue.
Yeah, I think it's usually Sorcery Domination, I think, is the key set.
I remember seeing those in the game. But regardless, it was a little bit of an attempt at a pun, but we'll ignore it completely. Right, ignore it. Okay.
Our brains are fried. The Aatrox is disgusting.
Yeah.
I need water. I'm
Rando's
dying.
very good. Well, you're going to have a chance to get some water because we're going to be popping to a short break. Coming up in a few minutes' time, we have got the battle for 4th place, which just determines side selection in their next game. Detonation Focus Meet Academy facing off against Burning Core Academy. We will see you in a few minutes.